And we're live. Hey, gang. Long time no see. Great to be here live on Ghosts of Bacon. Have a really great show lined up for you tonight. A lot of activity already in the chat. Thanks for joining us, all of the regulars and a couple of new people, too. Hey, Kat, Jason, John, Carolyn. Wow. Gang's all here. Tom, good to see you. Mary. So listen, gang, Jenny's here as well. And well, there's the Jersey lady. Welcome. So, today over the last couple of weeks, like I said, it's kind of been sporadic here at Ghosts of Bacon. I want to apologize. I've been a little remiss in my duties in our group in terms of keeping up with my posts and giving you guys updates of what's happening. But things have been very busy on this end. Things are moving very quickly on a lot of different fronts. And so you're probably going to see a little bit more of this, at least until my next book comes out. And at this point, if you recall, the working title was The Ghosts of Bacon. It wasn't just a clever title that came up with this group. It was geared towards that publication. And that has evolved, and it is now The Keys of the Rosy Cross and The Ghosts of Bacon. Because as you're going to find out, all of the new material that I have is just as shocking, if not more shocking, than the information I released in the Holy Trinity Decryption. And so I'm really excited to get all of this together and get it out to you here, hopefully before the first of the year. If not, it will be before spring. Like I said, there's more material constantly developing. And the problem is, as all of you know, that this is such a rabbit hole that all of us have been tumbling down for so long. That it just never seems to end. And one clue leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next. And the next thing I knew, I had a chapter that was growing and growing about Sir Walter Raleigh, actually, incidentally, and it just continues to grow. And so the more information I uncover, the more I want to include. So I want it to be a complete treatment of the material. Yes, John, the book will be available on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble. I'm going to be releasing it both simultaneously. Thanks for that question. So as we move forward, Daniel, there's my friend. I can't wait to be shocked. Well, you know what? It's the hits just keep coming, my friend. So I don't want to give any more buildup than is necessary for this next guest, because his pedigree speaks for itself. He's been on multiple podcasts. He's been on national radio, and Dave Petrella is one of those researchers who, like I said, his pedigree speaks for itself. And I'm really honored that he reached out to me over the last couple of weeks, and we've been in communication. And he was really excited. He really wanted to be able to come on the show. And like I said, I'm very humbled by that. We don't have a huge reach like a lot of the other podcasts, but someone with the track record that he has coming on the show, I'm really very proud to introduce my friend Dave Petrella. Welcome, my friend. I'm glad to have you here on the show. If you would please, there are a couple people that might not have heard of you, but it looks like a lot of the people in the chat have. People are already talking about Outer Realms. So go ahead and introduce yourself, my friend, and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Great. Thanks for having me, Jake. I really appreciate it.
Of course, I'm honored. Truly.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, if you guys, if some of you follow my work, I appear on lots of podcasts. I started my own podcast up, actually, I think about 2 weeks ago. I decided just to, invite people on, just to have conversations about whatever topics were, relevant, and things that I wanted to talk about, people that I wanted to talk to. And it's nice because I can do that one on my own time. I've also got a podcast with my friend Karen Holton out of Alberta, Canada, and it's called Aliens and Astrology, if you guys have seen that show before. Karen's one of my good friends, and we've been doing that for I think since last summer, so we're about to start our second season here in January.
Oh, and congratulations.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. That's on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network.
Mhm.
Chris Matthew is wonderful. He's got all kinds of great guests,
Oh,
so
yes.
we're very honored to be part of that. And yeah, what we're trying to do is to bring information to people. We just want to bring clear information that's going to help humanity, things that are available and accessible to people to help move things forward. That's my big thing, Jake. Is
Yep.
I look at where humanity's at. I'm like, all right, enough of the stalling. We're going to move this forward. We got a small but growing group of people who are ready to step on board and make that happen. So I surround myself with people that are ready to do that. They're at that point, and they also that they see the need, and they see that we actually need to do better, and we need to progress and everything like that. So
Indeed.
yeah, we do. Yep. So we do that twice a month. The first show of the month is just me and Karen talking about whatever topic is relevant that comes up, and then the second time we actually have a guest on the show, and of course we talk with them, and it's been really exciting. So it's been excellent.
Wow, great
Um,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And if people don't know, I am an astrologer. I do tropical astrology, which is based out of Egypt slash Mesopotamia. And then the other type of astrology that's well known is called Vedic astrology. It's also called Jyotish. It's out of ancient India. That's the other side of the world. So they're both valid, but I don't, I have enough on my plate, believe me, just trying to teach. And that's the thing that I've tried to do is I'm trying to teach it properly. I know there's a lot of misconceptions about it. Most people are probably aware of it only from your newspaper horoscopes and stuff like that. That's not
Sure.
really what it
Sure.
is.
Exactly.
It Right, and it was a serious science back in the ancient world. I It's actually interesting. I didn't even want to do it. It was put in my hands and said, "Hey, this is your responsibility." It's one of the things that I believe the universe asked me to do properly. So, I'm a normal guy, but I pay attention really, really close. So if something's being asked of me to do it, then I step up to the plate. And with
I get it.
astrology, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And
I get
with
it.
astrology, I and it's very interesting because we're going to start to cross paths and information here because we know Francis Bacon was essentially the founder of the scientific method.
Correct.
And since I was probably 10 years old, every week that goes by, I say, guys, you got to do it scientifically. You come in with a hypothesis, okay, but it's not. You shouldn't be coming in with a bias. You should be coming in. This is what I think.
Correct.
That
Yeah.
you're open to the information, so that when that comes in, you should be able to pivot based on where you're trying to be.
Exactly. You need to be able to objectively observe phenomena
Right?
and without those preconceptions. And if it matches your hypothesis and supports it, great. There's support. But if it refutes it, then you have to kind of rethink how you're looking at things. Sure.
Exactly, exactly. And I'll get into my Oak Island story in a second, but I just want to say this because it does relate to what you just said, Jake. Is the fact that when people get on the island, or if you have a chance to get on the island as a theorist, and to be able to talk with the team and everything, it's actually obviously it's absolutely wonderful. But the thing is that we have to remember it's also being kind of run by a Hollywood television show. I
That's
like the show. Right, and I
yeah,
enjoy the show just like you guys do. I'm not bashing it or anything like that. I'm just saying be aware of who is running stuff behind the scenes.
right.
Um,
And
and the
and
thing with that,
if I can quickly interject, if you
yeah,
and I
yeah,
were
yeah.
talking before the show, we both have seen that side of things. It's one of the things that I've said on other podcasts. I've said it on this one multiple times, and you commented on it a few times, um, where we all love the show. It's great entertainment, but it is Hollywood, and the guys in the fellowship, that's something they kind of do. They tolerate as an aside in a lot of ways. A couple of them I think really enjoy being on TV and enjoy the show, which is great. Um, but overall, it was always my impression that they're like, okay, yeah, we can go ahead and do a show, but we have to attend to what we're doing here. Was always the impression I got from the guys. What's your take on that? Because I mean, I think you and I have already
Right.
matched our notes when it comes to Hollywood and how that works.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the search for the treasure is it's really kind of their own enterprise. And then as you said, the cameras come in kind of behind the scenes and just do that. But as far as what I know, Rick doesn't even watch a show. I think Marty watches the show because
Yeah,
his wife enjoys it, and they,
yeah,
the family and stuff like that. But the thing, and I'll tell you what, I didn't, because I've talked to Rick, guys. I've met Rick. We'll get into this in a minute here, but the thing is that I was kind of surprised when I first talked to Rick. He's like, "Oh yeah, I don't really watch a show," and I'm like, "Wow, Rick, like this is a huge show. I mean, it should be exciting." I'm wondering. And then here's the thing, Jake, is that after I had done quite a few podcasts myself, I don't watch any of my podcasts at all because I know what I
yeah,
said, I
yeah,
know what I did,
right.
and
Same here.
I'm not right, and I'm not like a self-conscious person, so it doesn't bother me like if I messed up or something or if I didn't get it quite right. It's, we're all human, whatever, not a
Right,
big
right.
deal.
Yeah, for
So
sure. And I we'll get into the Oak Island stuff in a minute, but people who are fans of this podcast and fan of my work, they know that it, like you just said, and this is something you and I talked about before about the scientific method. And I'm like, listen, let's stick to facts, logic, inductive, deductive reasoning. Let's figure this stuff out.
mhm.
And so the big thing that I wanted people to pick up on here is that your interest in astrology, it's a little different than what, like, as you just said here at the top of the show, of what people just assume when they hear that word. When I saw that, you had that background, I was really excited because back when Sir Francis Bacon and John Dee were operating and studying the stars and studying astrology, astrology and astronomy were one and the same. And so looking at it from the perspective of how they would have looked at it as opposed to how we would look at it astronomically speaking, um, I think that that's a really, really important vantage point that you bring to all of this material.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jake. That's absolutely correct because, they're both important. And like you're saying, they used to be actually a combined science. People didn't freak out when you started assigning meaning to positionings and stuff like that. The
Right.
astronomers and astrologers, they're going to agree on the positioning, but the astronomers don't. No, they say, no, there's no meaning to that. It's ridiculous. And I say, okay, I beg to differ with you. And then what I say is, to be quite honest, if you respect me and you respect my work, you got to give me an hour, give me 1 hour. I don't want you saying anything until I'm done. And then when I finish, I'll open up for questions, man, that you can believe whatever you want. But you have to give the people I'll claim it right now. It's not really even a claim. I've been doing astrology since 2015, and I can
Right.
do it blindfolded now at this point. So
Sure.
the thing is that you don't open that up. You don't go in front of people unless you really know what you're doing. And if I didn't have the scientific proof of that, I never would have opened my mouth about astrology. I didn't even want to do it, guys, as I I just brought up
Yeah.
My training
Sure.
is actually in biology. So since I
Right.
was, and I'll just go over this really quickly, and then I
Please,
definitely want
and
to get into
remember,
Oak
it's
Island.
like I threw this out there. I want you to really introduce yourself so that there, like I said, there are a couple people that aren't familiar with your work and your background.
Mhm.
Please get into that pedigree of how you came into that. Especially with a background in biology. I just I find your story really interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I mean, I'm probably one of the only people, by the way, that is comfortable saying, "Yeah, I'm a biologist and I'm an astrologer." And yes, they do combine actually perfectly and correctly with each other. And I sent Jake a picture. We'll talk about that when we start talking about the Hercules knee point later on in the show here. But and I'll prove it to you guys. You want anyone? If you want the proof, I'm happy to be put on the spot. It doesn't phase me, because I feel very confident in what I'm saying. And it's based, by the way, it's based on thousands of years of wisdom and teaching. It's not me just coming and just inventing it. The reason I'm comfortable is because I have the backup from the ancient texts,
Right.
and from the ancient traditions, and I know it because I work with it, and I work with it in the field, which again, in terms of science, is that okay? You can learn the discipline, then you have to go apply it. You have to go out and do something with it.
Correct, correct. And that's one of the things that I've done with my cipher work is, a lot of people understand the ciphers of Sir Francis Bacon, um, but that I was frustrated with the fact that no one was actually applying it and
Right.
really using it. I mean, the first person I saw truly make a good attempt at applying these principles was Peter Amundsen. And he has his fans and his detractors, just like the rest of us. But He was the first one I saw to actually try to apply it in a meaningful way, to try to uncover information. And that's really how I got my start. Was, applying the same, and just looking to see what really is there, not just to understand the system, but how does it apply? How does it work? So,
Yeah, it's actually.
you have to apply it in the field, like you said. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, and that's just good science. A lot of people claim to be scientists, but I'll be the first to step up and say, look, yeah, I really messed that one up. If I'm wrong, my hypothesis, I'll be like, you know what? And I'll laugh about it, Jake. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's not a hit to my confidence or anything. It's just that, I did my best and there's other information now, so we have to work with that. But one of the things, before I forget this, I want to go over the biology in a second, and then I actually want to talk about Petter for a second too.
Sure.
But back on the island, you get on there, and if you get time behind the camera, it's not really as if you have time to develop the idea. So basically,
Right.
let me frame it this way. It's like, okay, I'll put a point on the ground. Let's go check it out. And then, well, maybe I was off by like 2 feet, and maybe I just missed the entrance. Okay,
Yep.
well, if I'm not given the opportunity to develop that, like, let me sit there for a minute. Let me talk to intelligent people. Like, Jake, I always want to have you as someone. I have such respect for what you did. I'm absolutely
Thank you.
astonished.
Thank you very
And we'll,
much.
oh, absolutely. And I'll get to why I'm supporting your theory 100%. I don't. It's not a theory to me. It's totally correct.
Yeah, it's a
So
discovery, you know? Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But the thing is you don't necessarily get the time to develop the idea, and the problem with that is that you can't be allotted like you know 10 hours or something like that, and say you have 10 hours to figure this out. And it's like, oh man, I mean, at least give me a week or something, because we might have to go back to the table and think and talk about it. There's a lot of people who are a lot better at mathematics than me. I'm actually, this is what's
Yeah.
brilliant too, Jake, is that I've never spent time with ciphers ever in my whole life.
Right.
But, and that, which really great about this too, is because it brings us together. You're coming from a completely different angle, and I see it, you explain it clearly, and I'm able to say, yeah, that actually is correct. But I'm not, I came at it from a completely different angle, which was essentially it was mathematics. I did
Right.
100% mathematic approach to everything I did. And since I also know the numerology really well from the ancient world, when and you too, Jake, with the with ciphers, when the number pops up, you know what it
You
is.
know what it means. Yeah.
Right. So I'm seeing these numbers pop up, and then I'm able to use kind of basic mathematics and geometry to apply that. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. But basically, what I want to say too is that I started with biology since probably about 10 years old. And even before that, I was out in the woods, digging up the dirt and looking at plants and studying plants and drawing them and everything. All this, which it's fairly amazing because, Francis Bacon was very similar to me in that aspect. And that's something that I paid attention to when I first discovered about him back in the beginning. I mean, really with Peter Amundsen, of course, which was season one.
Yeah.
I knew about Francis Bacon. I knew he did the scientific method, but I didn't know a whole lot else. So I did months of research on Bacon. This was a long time ago, though. For me, it was it was 2015 when I researched Francis Bacon, and I,
Right.
I read the New Atlantis. I read the what is it, Nova Organum or something of that nature, I
Organic.
believe.
Yep.
Right. I read through that, as a biologist, and I'm saying, does this make sense? And yeah, I mean, he's just a master of what he did. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So okay, so what I want to say with biology, and then we'll get to the island in a second, because I'm actually most excited, of course, to talk about that. That's why we're all here.
Sure, sure.
But I want people to see kind of how I came at this, and so I started biology, seriously at probably 10 years old. In fifth grade, I was reading, medical quality texts, and the teachers had no idea what I was asking. They didn't know about the structures or any of this stuff. So I
Sure.
had a really, really early start, and I continued through high school and college. I took honors courses. I got college credit when I was like a freshman in high school. I mean, all this kind of stuff. So that's what kicked off the biology part. And then at a certain point, I said, okay, you know what? I've had enough of the Western version of this. Let me go to the East. I want to see how they were teaching in the East, because you don't really get introductions to that in the West unless you're
Right.
really digging, not in front of you, and it's
Sure.
not really promoted. So I started with learning about the chakra system, which of course is what yoga is based on. If you guys know the 7 colors that go up the spine, I'm sure people are aware of that, at least remotely.
Mhm.
And I started in with that. I started to learn about shamanic states of consciousness, shamans and ancient wisdom keepers and things like that. That was in 20. Actually, that was a while back before I even started astrology. That was 2011 into 2012. And at that time, I actually was up in Alaska working in the tourism industry, so it was very conducive to being able to focus on high level material. Very quiet, Jake. The air is very
Sure.
clean.
Very
Oh yeah,
peaceful.
yeah. It's a wonderful place to be able to really to focus in. So I started that learning about the eastern side of biology, what they taught in the East, and then at that point, I started to kind of put a few things together, and then being able to say, wait a minute, these are not like separate teachings. It's actually just a missing half. And I really wish we talked about it in North America because it needs to come in
Right.
front of people. Even if I would never say like you have to believe. I don't tell anyone what to do at all. It's all up to you. It's your life. You choose. Um, but we need to get certain things in front of people at an early age, just so that you've seen it, and that
Mhm.
the fact that you've seen it done properly. That's the word for me. The key word is
Right.
that no, this is not astrology from Miss Cleo. This is astrology from the light of Egypt. This is from Mesopotamia. This is how it's actually done as a science. You have to see that done right. So
Get it. Yeah. Yep.
so I put all the biology stuff together, and then by the time 2015 came around, I was looking up specifically actually about what's called the spinal cord fluid or the cerebrospinal cord fluid. It's supposed to carry the spirit. It's supposed to be the medium in the physical body that carries the actual spiritual essence. And I had no idea what that meant. So I went to YouTube. This was like January of 2015. So we're coming up on, I guess, 8 years ago. And I was living in Florida at the time. I discovered something. I typed in cerebrospinal fluid. Santos Bonacci came up. If you guys are aware of his work, he's probably the number one flat Earth guy in the world right now. He's also a world class astrologer, and he teaches about sovereignty and all kinds of wonderful topics. So I watched that video and it absolutely completely changed my life. If people want to watch it, it's called The Secret of Secrets Hiding in the Bible, Part 1 and 2. And then the other one would kind of go, it's a similar, but there's a few things that are missing in between them. The other one's called Your Body is the Holy Land, Part 1 and 2. And when I saw that, not only did I finally understand actually the Bible as a book of astrotheology, which again, if you don't understand astrology and you're trying to get the full meaning behind the Bible, it's not going to happen. I guarantee that.
Right.
You can get maybe fairly close, but there's so many hidden meanings. I mean,
Well, astrotheology in and of itself is a topic that's worthy of multiple shows.
right.
And that's a rabbit hole in and of itself for sure.
Oh yeah. So
Very cool.
anyway, I started to get comfortable with that the first time. Here's a couple really quick examples. When you go to the Old Testament, you've got Sarah and Abram. Okay, well, what is that also? It looks a lot like cerebrum, doesn't it?
It
Because
does.
it is. Because it is. That's the whole point behind it, is that there's multi levels of meaning in the Bible. So I use the Bible, in fact, primarily when I use it as a medical text. It's actually
Wow.
telling you the secrets of the human body, and that's how I approach it. That's how I approach every text, really. Because that's even more important in astrology. If you know how to run energy in your body, you know how to clean your fluids properly, you're going
Right.
to be doing very well, very very well. So anyway, I picked that up, and then it took me a while. I was really shocked. In fact, I was shocked to the core, and I actually had a few days where I was like completely mute. I just sat in the chair and I didn't even know what to do. I couldn't even move, Jake. I didn't even know what to think. I'm like, well,
Sure.
I don't even know what this means right now. But it felt like I was never going to be the same, and I was not. I was not the same ever again. So what I did to
So it
wrap
was a very transformational moment for you, and that one experience.
Oh yeah, because I grew up Catholic. I'm no longer part of the Catholic Church, but we used to go to what is called catechism or CCD. That's education for kids when they're young about spirituality and about Jesus. And I was sitting there, and it's just if you had told me, I mean, of course they're probably not going to say this because it's heresy for the church. But it's like, yeah, it's okay. It's a story about Jesus, but it's also a story about your body. It's also a story about the stars. It's a story about spirituality and all kinds of things. They're all layered on top of each other. And if you have the eyes to see it, then it's there. It's ready for you. And of course,
About
now,
7 layers, yeah.
oh, totally.
Yeah, yeah.
And after I saw, and this is it's amazing the timing too, Jake. Now, when I saw your presentation with Jeff from July, actually, now I was actually on the road. I had a 100-day research trip that I did. I started
Oh,
on
wow.
July I started on actually June 30th. I left Texas and I traveled all throughout the Southeast United States, all the way up to the New England area, then all the way back across the Midwest and the plains, and then up to the Pacific Northwest, which is where I'm spending the winter right now. And so I actually missed your podcast with Jeff by like 2 weeks. I would have seen it because I follow and I see who's going to be on and everything. I missed it by
Sure.
2 weeks. So I actually hadn't watched your podcast where you go over the map and the 1611 Bible until literally it was 2 weeks ago. And I don't
Oh,
even
wow.
remember. I went in some kind of like a wormhole. I don't even know how I found it. Well, actually, I do know how I found it because I started to participate in of course Jeff's group, during the show,
Sure.
the recap every Wednesday. And then I scrolled down Jeff's page and I saw that you were on, and I said, all right, you know what? This is worth revisiting. I want to hear what Jake's saying because I heard some of your stuff a couple of years back. But I was like, no, this is a new year. I want to hear what's going on. I want to see what I'm missing. And that, I mean, even that night, I'll never be the same after having seen that. Now,
Yeah.
the Bible's not just all the other stuff. It also has treasure maps in it. I mean, it's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I was telling my friend the other night too. I said, like what better way to make sure that that lasts through the ages than to print it in a book that is never going to disappear. I mean, I know the versions have been edited and stuff, and I've heard you guys talk
Yep.
about that. And I know John brought that up too, and I totally see that and acknowledge that. But the
Yeah.
idea is to have something that's going to be in circulation in perpetuity, so that you can make sure it
Correct.
doesn't ever disappear. The only other way I would say to do that is put it in stone. Either put it in stone or put it in a book, and you're good to go.
Bingo. Bingo. And something else you could do, which is something that I believe he did, and I'll be presenting that evidence here again in my next book, was to create a brotherhood or organization that's going to use that exact book as their Bible. And that, of course, was Freemasonry. They use and John Edwards is the one who brought that to my attention. There he is saying again the 1600. Which this is the version of the Bible, the exact facsimile that Freemasons have and use right to this day. So
And the
again, that's another way to perpetuate it the way you just said. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh, totally. And the other one too, Jake, is the LDS Church, formerly called the Mormon Church. They use the King James Bible. And I mean, I believe the Catholic Church also, right? King James Bible. Not the same copy necessarily, but I thought it was the King James Bible. So it's actually specific to that in a lot of ways. For me, it was always very formal. And it's actually, see, again, this is an amazing thing. It's that if we hadn't crossed paths, if I hadn't seen that video a couple weeks back, we wouldn't even be having this conversation now, because what the Bible I use is I've used the New International Version, the NASB version,
Right.
different ones. But for me, I always like I'm a very, if you can't, you probably already tell, people already know this about me if you see my videos. I'm a very like to the point person. So
Right.
when I see thy, thou, I'm like, all right, just cut it, just cut the crap, guys. I just want to see the information. You don't have to get formal on me. I'm not
Right.
wasting my time with that. So it got tiring for me to read through that. So I never actually looked at that Bible. So in any case, I'll just wrap this up so we can get to Oak Island because it's really
Sure.
exciting, this part of it. But basically, after I found these videos by Santos Bonacci, and I would encourage everyone, if you've never seen his stuff, go over to it's actually called Mr. Astrotheology. That's his YouTube channel. He's got thousands of videos up there. And he also started his society. It's called Syncretism Society. Go check out that website too. He's doing absolute A+ work for the world, and I will always be thankful for him. He's changed my life. He's changed millions of people's lives, and he's still leading the charge, on a lot of what he's doing. So, thank you, Santos. Go check out his work, guys. He's brilliant. So,
And it's Mr. Oops, Mr. Mr.
it's
Astrotheology.
yeah, astrotheology, right? Just one word,
Gotcha.
astrotheology. You guys will find it. He's easy to find on YouTube. He's also a brilliant musician too. He's a flamenco guitar player. I mean, the man is an absolute genius.
Well, it's funny.
So,
It's like as soon as you said that, I quickly looked it up, and that was the first thing I saw was him playing his guitar.
right.
Here. So that would be the YouTube channel that Dave is talking about, gang.
Yep, that's the one right
Just
there,
thought I'd
guys.
throw that out there.
So,
Theology.
in any case, so after I saw the video he did about the spinal cord fluid, because I was looking for the esoteric meanings behind biology, because you're not going to get that in North America, let's face it. And even people over in Asia, I talked to people, and they still have no idea. So, and then to me, it's like, well, that's why we're in this situation right now with the world it being very unstable, in my opinion, is because you're not paying attention to what the actual original teachings were. And then you wonder, oh, why are things, being corrupted? Well, because we
Right.
don't know we still don't know what we're doing. That's why, as humans.
Sure. And
But
and
there are
and I'm sure
teachings
that
in
led you
place.
to, like, serpent energy, kundalini experience, and that whole route as well, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it was at one of my podcasts, Jake. You probably
Yeah.
saw some of that. Yeah,
Some
the Kundalini power, it is directly related to the chakra system and the superhighway up your body, which is the spinal
Mhm.
cord. It's also, sometimes it's referred to as the vertebra. Obviously, for instance, we know 33 vertebra. I'm sure you guys know that.
Mhm.
And there's meanings behind that too. But really, the idea really is the actual cord. The cord is protected inside the bones of the vertebra, and that's
Correct.
where that's where your chakra systems actually interface with, in terms of when the energy comes into the body. It has to go through the spinal cord. And by the way, if you heard the word silver cord before, I would very strongly argue the reason for that. I mean, if you've ever done a dissection, most people haven't, but look at the gray matter of the spinal cord. It's a grayish silver color. That's why it's gray matter, silver matter. It's the same idea.
Makes sense.
So
And I
yeah.
wanna interject quickly because I mean, a lot of people that are watching this, and if you're gonna, talk about, the 33, vertebra, that includes the 9 fused bones of the coccyx. Isn't that correct? And the tailbone? Because
I
a lot of when we bring that up and talk about it, a lot of people say, "Well, hold on," and they wanna, kind of, um, try to, parse that out, when in reality, those are fused bones. So, I just wanna, kinda clarify that for people who are watching and, might question that.
right.
So that, again, you did such a great job of kinda giving us that, background in the big picture
Yep.
of how we both ended here. You and I finally crossed
Right.
paths. We started sharing information. We're both saying, "Holy cow, this is really cool." And John Edwards is in the chat, and he keeps, he's one that always says repeatability,
Hmm.
redundancy. This idea that we all come up with some of the same exact pieces of information from completely different, divergent directions, and we arrive in the same spot. That's
Exactly.
that's pretty astounding. So, um, do you want to open it up to questions, or do you want to move on to the cool part where you want to talk about Oak Island?
Well, let me just set it up, and then actually, I totally would be happy to take a few questions
Okay, great.
before we talk about the island. But the last part of this basically is that on the side, when I pulled up Santos' channel, again, I was looking for biology information. So
Mhm.
on the side where it says these are the videos we recommend for you, there was a bunch of videos about astrology, and I said, wait a minute. I'm like, I had such respect for that man because of what he said. I still don't even know to this day how he found all that information. It is the most obscure information you're ever going to find on the planet, and it is the absolute core of ascension teachings and medicine. Those videos that I told you guys about, if you want to check that out, absolute core. I hang my hat on that until I'm not on this planet anymore, and I'm happy to be challenged on that too. That's how strongly I feel. So the thing about it is that on the side, he had videos about astrology, and I said, since he did such a good job with the spinal cord fluid topic, it was something that I was absolutely astounded by the level of detail and how he put everything together and kind of brought it all together. I said, you know what? He actually deserves me spending more time watching his videos. I had so much respect for him that I said, you know what? Here's a topic I didn't really want to do. I didn't want to look at astrology really, but I'm like, no, he did such a good job. I'm gonna watch all of his videos. So I started watching stuff about the atom, the atom. Well, I'm talking about the molecule atom. Being similar to the word atom in the Garden of Eden and
Sure.
stuff, and how things are coming down from a non-matter form into physicality, and all these things coming together. And then I watched his astrology videos, and he's very clear how he does it. He does an absolutely superb job. And then I started to do. I looked at my birth chart, my own birth chart. I looked at my friends and family birth charts, and then after I had done maybe 20 of them, I said, no, there is something really interesting happening here. You cannot, and I know John says it all the time. You cannot make it up. You cannot make it up. So
Right.
when you look at that and you're saying, oh, okay, like I can put one of the early things I started to do is people who I know their birthdays, I put them in the proper sign, and then I would think about them all as a unit of people. And then I went and I read about the sign, and I said, no, they're all like essentially the same. They're all like that. I'm reading the description. That can't be fake.
Right.
So after I'd done that for a little while, then I started to do charts. It took me 2 years to get really even like remotely solid with it. I mean, I was even after 2 years, I was still kind of middling. I was probably about 60,
Sure.
70% accurate. But then you take it into the field again with is good science, and you see, okay, what am I missing? Does this not make sense? If it doesn't make sense, how can I figure this part out? You have to work with it, as a
Right.
science.
Sure.
So, that's how that started. It was because I respected the man so much that I said he actually deserves my attention, and he's earned it for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, still one of my favorite people on the planet. So,
Amazing.
anyway, right. So I picked all that stuff up. Again, I didn't want to do astrology. It was given to me, I feel, as a responsibility when I came to this planet, teach it correctly. I'm not. I'm interested. The only thing I'm ever interested in is helping people. I'm gonna make that very clear. Helping people, helping humanity, and helping the world. And if I ever stray from that, please call me out, because that is 100% my mission. So that's the lead up to that, and then
That
Oak
that
Island
fits
comes
that
in.
fits in perfectly with what we try to do here, hey, you and I were talking before the show, and,
Mhm.
one of the big things I try really hard to open it up as a forum, for people to share their ideas in pursuit of the
Right.
truth, and as you said, that can only help people because that's what will set us free, and, it's not just a cliche. This is well, forgive the pun, a truism. you know,
That's right.
uh,
That's right.
as long as we are able, George Orwell stated it best in his book 1984 when he said, um, "Freedom is the freedom to say two and two make four. Given that, all else follows." And in other words, being able to speak out the truth and say it. As long as we can continue to do that, then I think that we're going to continue to help people. So great sentiments,
That's
Dave.
right.
Thanks. So go ahead, take us away.
Yeah.
What do we have?
Okay. So amidst all this research, I was just walking through my house one day, and Curse of Oak Island was on TV. I had no idea what it was. I had never read any articles about it. I know some people knew what it was before it came on TV. I had never heard of it before. And I was actually born in Connecticut, which is not that far from Nova Scotia, of course.
True.
And I had still never heard of it. So in any case, I saw it come up on TV, and actually in the beginning, I'm like, I'm not wasting my time with this. I don't have time for treasure hunts and stuff like that. And then was it about the third
Little did
episode?
you
I think.
know.
Right, right. I think it was about the third episode that Petter Amundsen came on the TV, and I actually also did not know a lot about the Kabbalah teachings at all.
Right.
That was my first introduction to Kabbalah. So I actually, in 2015, I started my research with Kabbalah. I don't do a lot with it, but I know it. I know it well enough to be able to navigate with it. Actually, I go back further than that. And the reason I don't spend time with Kabbalah is because I try to go back to the original teaching, which is it's
Right.
hard to get to sometimes. So
Sure.
I saw him putting the map on, or the cross on the map rather. I saw him talking about Nolan's cross, of course, and I had my doubts about it. But after I had spent some time with him, and I'd never heard about Shakespeare being someone else. Of course, I read Shakespeare in high school, just like everyone. I remember specifically my favorite was probably Midsummer Night's Dream, and
Right.
then we did read Hamlet as well, and there were a couple others I think. And it's interesting because the just last night, Jake, the last thing I was doing before as I was preparing for the show is The Tempest came up again. It just came right in front of my face. I actually need to read it. I believe, as crazy as this might sound, but just what I'm getting from in terms of ideas coming in from sort of divine sources or heavenly sources, is that might be actually a true story. When I was on the island, it can be a little dark. You feel like there might be some sorcery in the trees, stuff going on. When you go through New England, there's all, and Jake, I think at least a little
Yeah.
bit, but there are all kinds, especially up and down the Hudson Valley, just a little bit north of the city of New York City. There's all kinds of stone chambers. You've got America's Stonehenge in New Hampshire. You've got
Correct.
Gungy in Connecticut. You've got
Yep.
all kinds of things all across the region. The Calendar One site in Vermont, if you guys want to see that, I mean, it's on my Instagram page, Dave Petrella 12, if you want to check that out. There's all these things that remind me. The first thing I think of is like Druid. I think of
Mhm.
sorcery and magic and Druid. I mean, there's even coffee that's called like dark magic from the Vermont. What is it? The Vermont Coffee Company or whatever
Vermont
it's called.
Coffee Company. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like all these things are in our minds, and it's a regional kind of thing. So next time when I read The Tempest, I'm going to treat it as nonfiction and see where I come out from that. The other reason I say that
That's an
is
interesting take. It really is.
oh yeah, the other reason I say that, Jake, and I had mentioned this, one of the first things I said to you a couple of weeks when I sent you a message, was that I had a guest on my podcast. Actually, his name's Robbie Marks. He's brilliant. He does great work. Check him out for sure, guys. I got all links up there if you want to see him. But
Great.
he mentioned to me, I didn't say this. This came out of nowhere, and he said, "Oh, Dave, I actually heard that um, it was actually an angel that actually created the island and placed the stone in the money pit and all that stuff." And I said, "Wow, I have never heard that before." Then I started to think about that. Then I started to think about the Tempest again, and I'm thinking about my experiences on the island, what I felt, and all of these things. Because at a certain point, the more you study Google Earth, I think you can probably identify with this, Jake. Probably a lot of people
Mhm.
can. It gets to a point where it's actually hard to believe that, for me, that a human pulled this off, because it is not what it seems. There's all kinds of energy there, guys. There's guardian energy. There's ghost energy. There's someone saw the British troops, that the young girl before when she was on the island with her family.
Oh
There's the
yeah, I
fireball.
forgot about that story. Yeah, yeah. And the
Oh yeah,
fireball that Dave saw. Yeah.
yeah. There's the fireball. There's weird stuff going on. You really have to be on your mark when you get on that island, because it will kind of throw you in a loop if you're not stable energetically. So anyway, so the show came on TV, and I said, just looking at it, I'm like, well, I don't really know what to make about this yet. But it was in the midst of my research, trying to put together the ancient traditions. And as I said, the Kabbalah came up, and that was a missing piece for me. So I used it as an opportunity to study Kabbalah. And then at some point, I watched actually Petter's videos, that his documentaries that he made. One of them is the Seven Steps to Mercy, which I think is the best one of all of them.
Yes.
I would highly encourage people to go check that out if you haven't. I actually just I sent Petter a message the other night, just saying hi, and I thanked him again. I asked him if he was free, come join us, because I think he would be interested in seeing what we have. He's
Yeah.
the reason. Oh, sorry, Jake.
No, no.
He's the
I was just going to say the same thing. He's his theory really captured the imagination of most of us. I think, which it's what led me down this rabbit hole. And um, you know, so and again, he's a very gracious guy when you reach out and
right.
message
Yep.
him. Yeah, I would love to see him on your show. I would definitely check that out.
Oh man, I'll invite him, Jake. It's a great idea. I'll see if he wants to join me. Um, so in any case, he is actually the reason. It is actually Petter Amundsen. He's the reason that I'm involved. So I'll put that right out front. And if there's a treasure that comes up, the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stand there. I'm gonna thank everyone who was involved and who made it possible. It's a group effort. I know a lot of people say that it's teamwork. It takes all of us to do this. And it's a story for the world. It's not my story. It's not Petter's story or Jake's. It's
Right.
everyone's story. So we have
I
to.
agree with that 100%, Dave. I do. I really do. I mean, because
Yeah, and
I think so many of us have pieces that have led us, uh, to where we are in the different places we put on the map. And one of the things that you said
right. Yeah.
that really resonated with me is, in the Money Pit area last season, they sunk what 4 or 5 10-foot cans
Hmm.
and missed. And they checked our spots, and drilled once with a small drill, and they only had to be off by an inch,
Oh yeah.
or we only had to be off by an inch using Google Earth, which is off by what 15 feet at least, 5 meters anyway, any direction. Yeah, it's difficult, like you said, to be able to refine that point, go there, get boots on the ground, and look at all the things that have been, all of the clues that have been wiped, from the surface and that kind of a thing.
Oh yeah.
And then you're fumbling in the dark at that point. So, uh,
That's right.
good
But
points. Good points.
the other thing too, Jake, I thought about this a lot, is that you put your X on the ground, you go over to that point, and if I'll put it this way, if you're gonna dig a big hole or a deep hole, it's gonna have to be fairly wide anyway, just to get the machinery in there. So
Hmm.
like I'm actually not I'm in no way am I worried about it at all. I mean, it can be figured out. We have to get the right people. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm so happy with what the Laginas have discovered this season. I actually had the past 4 years or so, I've been kind of in the back seat with Oak Island. I used to take detailed notes and research every name that came up and every topic and all this stuff. But it was this season when I saw, there's two things I saw. The first was the well that they discovered, which really piqued my interest. I'm like, all right, and I know about that well. We never physically saw it. We saw them do testing on it, and they had
Mhm.
malfunctions on their electronic equipment, which
Yeah,
was suspicious.
sure.
But it's nice to finally see that. The other one was the fact, of course, of the garden shaft, which is where I'm going to kick this off in a second. This is the whole, and I've not been this excited about the island since I was there. I mean, this is a huge, huge deal. I said, yeah, I'm going to come on Jake's show and I'm going to come out in support of what Jake is saying 100%. And
Thanks,
people
man.
like, Dave, oh yeah, people like, Dave, you sure you want to do that? I'm like, believe believe me, because the work I did 5 years ago, and the maps that I made, which have been sitting, I haven't had. There's no reason for me to do anything with them because I need to be on the island if we're going to actually figure it out. So it directly supports what I've already stated, and I
Mhm.
stated it a minimum of 5 years ago.
Right. Okay.
And me and Jake came at it from completely radically different angles. There's no way. I don't have training in ciphers. Jake, I don't
Right.
think you have training in astrology, and
No,
stuff of this
none,
nature.
none.
So that's what's amazing. You see them all line up, and then you're like, okay, no, I'm 100% in.
And on that note, Dave, again, I want to reiterate, I want to emphasize to people watching that when you're talking about astrology, you're talking about it in terms of the science of astrology that Francis Bacon would have been employing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
right.
all the people in the ancient world who
Mhm.
who really knew something, I guarantee you they knew astrology. It's the
Sure.
core. It's always been about the planets and stars. And what I'm happy to do those, and I have a lot of videos on it. I'm going to continue to do that, but I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for people. I stopped using big words at the end of high school, and I'm like, you know what? I sound like an idiot. I'm not doing that. It turns people off. I'm going to use normal words, things that people understand, and then I'm going to pause. And if there's questions, I'll clarify it. And then once everyone's good, then we'll move on.
Move forward.
Not it,
Sure.
yeah, it's not about. I'm not trying to garner attention for me. I'm trying to bring understanding, of course. So all right. So back to Oak Island here. So basically, after I saw Petter's theory, it took me down a different road in terms of understanding about some of the Jewish mysticism and all these things I never really spent time with. Then what happened was, after maybe, what was it, another year, something like that, I
Mhm.
actually sent an email to one of the business partners of Marty. For some reason, I could not find Marty's email, probably on purpose, because he's
He's a
doesn't
public
want that.
figure. Yeah, yeah.
Right, exactly. So I'm like, all right, I'll find the back or the way around this, and I found one of his business associates. So I sent him a direct email, and then he got it to Oak Island Tours, which is of course their company. And
Mhm.
then what ended up happening, I don't even know. It was maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks went by, and I was sitting there in my house in Florida where I was living at the time, and my cell phone rings, and it's a Michigan area code, and it was Rick. It was
Yeah,
Rick Lagina. He called my cell phone because he
cool.
got the transmission that I sent. They got it to the right people, and then he was able to
Right,
see the theory and everything. So me and Rick ended up. We sat down. We talked for about 2 hours. This was the beginning of 2016. I think it was January 2016.
right. Okay.
And I described everything, and he, Rick's not. I don't think his focus is really in the mysticism realm. And he's
Right.
so something, he's a lot more traditional when it comes to that stuff. So a lot of the stuff, he might not have been like really wanting to hear some of the stuff I was saying.
Sure.
Because guys, if anyone's seen my podcast, there's not a topic I don't do. I talk about aliens, I talk about dimensions, I talk about metaphysics, all the stuff,
Right.
and I'm not scared of any of the topics. But I understand that most people, especially if you haven't heard of it before, it gets a little freaky. I mean, it gets a
Sure.
little weird. It actually gets
Right.
really weird, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, it does. So it gets weird very quickly, David. And what you're
Yeah.
speaking to there are, again, what's called normalcy bias. People, have their own views of how the world works, how it operates, and I'm very similar. Uh, you know, the one that I hit it off with, I think, was Marty. just because he's very scientific, very pragmatic, and let's follow the logic of it. And I was going through explaining my information. He says, "I just got to stop you here." And I thought, "Oh crap, here we go. Uh, here comes the question." And I was looking forward to because I knew I could answer any question.
Hmm.
But it's also Marty. He says, "This is just the coolest thing I've ever seen. Just keep going. This pace is great." And he really encouraged me. And so, I get that. So what I try to do, and again, this is something, it's because it's a professional hazard. I teach critical thinking skills to my students. And a part of that is understanding your own cognitive biases and trying to set them aside in order to allow the information to come through, and then to weigh it based upon what you know and what you can confirm,
Hmm.
or you accept it and make it a part of your worldview, or you just dismiss it and move on. That's what
Absolutely.
happens, when we experience cognitive dissonance, right? So what you're talking about there, it's a very strong phenomena that we have in our psychology, of this normalcy bias, of us holding on to our worldviews because it makes us feel comfortable and safe. But suddenly you start throwing in some of these other topics, and all of a sudden, people just kind of like flip the switch. So yeah, I totally get what you're
Right.
saying. Yeah.
Right. In terms of Oak Island, I actually believe there's a very large amount of things that are there in terms of
Mhm.
what are buried. And after I've seen your video, Jake, because I've been thinking about the best way to kick it off. How should we start this? How should we start the recovery? Obviously we need to get the green light. I think it will happen at
Yeah.
some point, whether there's a show or not. I believe that it will happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. I don't think anyone here is going anywhere with this topic. We're in it for life, guys, right? So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, once
um,
once it gets you, it doesn't let you go.
that's right.
Yeah.
So the thing is, why I'm particularly excited about the season two is because now, I mean, I'm in full support of what Jake found in terms of the actual money pit location. I do believe it's on the corner of the garden shaft, um, and I think we're going to be seeing some kind of evidence of that. It's going to get really exciting in my view.
I
But
agree.
if you can identify the actual money pit without any question, now, I mean, I actually want to go back and start a season one now, because now if I know where it actually is, now I can see where they're digging in comparison to that, and I can see some of the other information that came in, for instance, with Dunfield and other people who were digging there.
Sure.
Now you have the proper bearing, so now you know where all the stuff should be. So when you see them
Right.
digging, now you know what's going on. So that's
Right.
the thing for me, is that, and if you know the money pit, then you also know the Hercules knee point.
Correct.
So it's not going to be hard, I don't believe, and I shouldn't say that because it probably will be hard for somehow. It's never easy, man.
Well,
But
that's what one of the things that I've been talking to people about, and on and off. And like I said, every once in a while I have conversations with people
yeah,
in the fellowship, and um, they say, "Are you still married to the knee of Hercules?" I said, "Absolutely. That is a significant part of the island for a variety of reasons." And for those of you who are watching and are unfamiliar with my theory, one of the things that I did was I was able to identify, through some research, what I believe to be the original locations of the stones of Nolan's Cross. And there's a variety of reasons why, I believe, and I'm convinced that Fred Nolan moved cones A and B most significantly, and probably D as well, a little bit. But it's because, first of all, someone saw him do it. And that person actually recorded the original locations, and I was able to get my hands on a copy of the image that identified those locations. And so, um, because of this, I realized that this threw off a lot of the work that had been done using Nolan's Cross as a model, or possibly archaeoastronomy, a representation of a constellation in the sky. And when I looked at the actual configuration, I saw a keystone shape, and at the center of Hercules is the keystone asterism. And so suddenly we were able to place Hercules on the island as an overlay. But again, the only way to do that is with Google Earth. And as I stated earlier, it's off by up to 5 meters. So just, even if you work with it very, very precisely, the way obviously we all do. So, and yeah, Daniel,
if
you're
you
right. He did move a lot of things. Yeah. Keep going, Dave.
if you if you dug a 20-foot by 20-foot hole in the ground, which would probably be almost required if you have big machinery in there anyway, you're going to find the point. You know, that's the thing for me, is that I'm not worried about being off by a foot or two. If you know you're in the general area, just
Right.
expand it a little bit. You will find it. And then once you find
You'll
it, you
find
can
it.
chill out. Yeah, you can chill out and then you can focus on that section. So
Exactly.
there's a lot of ways to feel good about that. So yeah, the last thing I want to say in the lead up here before we get into all of the science and everything is that you know, of course, I formed a bond with Rick. We talked about that, and we exchanged a few emails. He's obviously a very busy guy. He's a
Oh
really
yeah.
great guy, though. Really nice guy, really genuine, very authentic. It's nice
Well,
to see that.
that's one of the questions I get too. It's like, when you talk to these guys, they really, I mean, they really are the way they come across on TV. That's the one thing that I think Prometheus does a wonderful job with, which is
Hmm.
the way they present the fellowship and who these guys really are and the way they operate. They're the real deal.
Absolutely, yep. So 2016, you know, I said me and Rick talked in January. He invited me to come out. He's like, Dave, whenever you want to come out, just let me know. That summer, I actually had to work. I was a little bit low on money at that in that summer, so I actually couldn't. I didn't have the time. I didn't have the freedom to be able to do that. So I kind of put it off, and I followed the season. That was actually the season that Fred Nolan passed away. It
Yeah.
was 2016, I believe, the summer.
16. Yeah.
So yeah, so that affected me a little bit too, because you know it's a big family, guys. I feel like we all feel that, and, you know, and maybe we don't always all get along with each other. The the best example of that would be probably Dan and Fred, you know. But
For sure.
but it's still a big family, and there's a reason that we're all involved with this. So what I did is I actually sent. I ended up sending Jack Begley a message, and actually we became friends somewhere in the when was it? The end of 2016, maybe. We started talking about stuff, sharing some information, and then in 2017, um, he actually was able to get me on the island. And because I had cleared my schedule for the summer of 2017, so I was going to be free to do that because it was important to me, you know, and I believed I could help. So Jack got me into the war room, and again, I was the first person in the new war room, which of course is up the road. You know, the old war room is right when you come across the causeway. It's fairly dilapidated at this point. So they made the new one, and you guys will notice. I mean, the plaque
Yeah.
on the front of the new war room, it says 2018, and I was there summer of 2017. So when I got in
Right.
there, it was still being put together. I mean, they had to clear they had boxes all over there. They had to clean that
Yeah.
stuff out and, you know, get it ready to be a studio basically, you know.
Right.
So I got in there. I did probably an hour and a half presentation on everything I could pretty much possibly put together and think of. Again, it's one of those things where it's a developing story, so you need to be able to have time to develop the ideas more. The only way you can do that really is to get out in the field, take the
Yeah.
measurements, and actually dig. You know.
Right.
So I'm not going to talk a huge amount about what I actually did. Partly the reason for that is because they do. Prometheus does have my footage, and if they want to use it, they actually technically can. So I
Sure.
don't want to get ahead of things, but I will say, you know, of course, obviously it's centered on the Money Pit and Nolan's Cross, which are the two kind of main focus points for the island. And
Hmm.
we'll get into a little bit of it. I do have an interview with Alessandra Nadidvari on my YouTube channel. It was on her Templar Island podcast. So you guys want
Right.
to see a little bit of what I was saying, go check that out. That's going to be the best place to go.
And that is really well done. And well, Alessandra does an awesome job anyway.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, she's brilliant. She's
good,
such a
good
sweet
friend,
lady.
good
We
friend of the
love
show.
her for sure. Yep. Okay, so anyway, I did that presentation, and then we went out in the field, and you know, tried to develop some of the theory and the points that I wanted to dig and everything. Probably a total of maybe 9 hours that they filmed my work. So basically, at the end of the season, I was fairly astonished that I wasn't on the show. You know, and it's not just you know. And then when I saw what was put in place of me on the show, in terms of there's a lot of recap, a lot of dull theories, I'm like, oh my god, guys, you come on, even 5 minutes. Like, I'm not looking for fame. I'm trying to help this be solved, and I don't
Right. Right.
understand. If people saw what I had to present, they would have loved it. You know, whether it's true or not, good
And
information.
and you and I have talked about this too, and I've talked about this with other people who they've been actually shown on screen, but they've done multiple presentations off screen.
Hmm.
They're probably I think the one that is probably holds the record for the most presentations was my dear friend who passed, Chris Dona.
Hmm.
He's done multiple presentations with Corey Mall and Chris Morford. Chris Stone and Chris Morford were the ones that kind of sucked me into all of this. Um, but he's done uh, he had done so many presentations, and he was able to get, at one point, I think he was on screen for about three and a half, 4 minutes, something like that. We used to joke about it. But we both said the same thing. Like you just expressed really well. This is not why we do it. We're not doing it for fame. We have information and we want to share it. Um, and so uh, I think that's an important thing. And I've brought this up before on other Oak Island shows that I've done for this podcast. That is, and anyone who's out there who is an Oak Island enthusiast and theorist, and wants to present their ideas to the Brotherhood, by all means, go ahead. But you need to go into it with your eyes wide open, knowing that depending upon whether or not it's going to make what the producers believe is compelling TV, will determine whether or not you're on TV. So, and even if you think it's drop just drop the mic sort of information, um, at the end of the day, the important part is you get to share it with the Brotherhood and the Fellowship, and share your information with them, because they are the literally boots on the ground. So should
Exactly.
just go into it with your eyes wide open, is what I tell people.
Yeah, and my feeling too, Jake, is that the island's not going anywhere. So if it's 20
That's for
years from
sure.
now, fine.
Yeah.
I'll be paid. I've been asked many times in my life. I have all kinds of friends, guys. I've got psychic friends, channeler friends, paranormal people who do stuff with paranormal,
Oh, okay.
all over the board. But I've been told many times, Dave, you have to be patient. And of course, it's the last thing I want to do when you feel strongly, right, Jake? You know where
Yeah, yeah,
something is.
yeah,
The last thing
yeah.
you want to do is wait.
Wait.
Okay, but this, see, what I believe is buried on the island is absolutely pivotal for the world in terms of us moving forward and as humanity moving forward. So I understand. I'm mature enough to understand. It's not my timeline. I don't believe it's my timeline. It's the
Sure.
timeline for the world. And of course, me being an astrologer, I do believe in timelines. And I can prove that too. People, it's on my page if you want to see that stuff. I do stuff with the ages, the different ages of the zodiac, and all the
Mhm.
Yuga cycle out of ancient India. So there's a time. I believe there's a time for everything, and it's not quite time, but it is getting damn close because what for me, I don't get information like I got when I saw Jake's video 2 weeks ago, unless it's about to really break open. So it's because I've been waiting for it. I've been waiting for that kind of information, and if I don't get it, what it means to me is that it's just not quite time.
Sure. And
So
it's funny you say that, because as things get closer, there's been a huge uptick of people reaching out to me. Just because I think it's, honestly, I have to think about this logically. It's because of the podcast, and it's starting to
oh
gain
yeah,
traction, and the book has gained some traction. The books have gained traction as well. Um, but it's really pretty interesting that the people who have been reaching out and kind of coming together, where we're all crossing paths, and we're sharing a lot of the same information. Um, and oh, geez, Jenny just had a really great. Jenny, this would be really fun too. Maybe Prometheus will make a special edition DVD of the presentations given. Uh, the thing is, oh my gosh, can you imagine, Dave, how many DVDs that would be?
yeah,
Because we give 3 hour presentations, and next thing you know, that people show up for 3 minutes on TV.
right.
The DVD series would be, oh my gosh, it would take a year to watch it,
Well,
but
but
it's
yeah,
a great idea, Jenny, because
you
I
know
mean,
what?
all those presentations are really great.
Yeah, and you know what too, Jake? I've been thinking about doing a separate Oak Island podcast. Nothing real formal, but just to get a perspective
Sure.
from someone who's actually done work there.
Mhm.
I might even host people, have them on just to talk about what you got. What do you think about Oak Island? Where do you stand on it? Because
Yeah,
I want everyone to have a say in it. I want people to be involved.
sure.
It's a story for all of us. Yeah, but so in any case, but all right. So should we jump ahead here, Jake? Should we
Yeah,
jump
go ahead.
into it?
Let's go.
Okay.
We're just over an hour at this point, and so
Okay.
let's dig into the meat.
Okay, so season 10 comes up. Obviously, everyone's excited about that. And, I always am. Every time it comes around, it's something to look forward to. It's cold outside. You get to sit inside and really kind of get into an interesting story. So, basically, what happened was I was really surprised when the garden shaft came up again because last season on Jeff Freeman's show, he brought up the garden shaft quite frequently, and of
Mhm.
course, I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, "No, that was just another searcher shaft and stuff like that." But I actually believe that both you and Jeff had the intuition beforehand. I don't know if you guys had any tip-offs to that they were going to be doing that.
No, no, we had nothing, and it was, that's again, I keep telling people this, when it comes to this research, when it comes to Sir Francis Bacon and Oak Island, everything has been very there's been a lot of synchronicities that have happened, meaningful coincidences, if you will, where, I'll be working on something, and I'm working on a chapter in my first book, and then all of a sudden, I get an image in my inbox from, Chris Morford of a particular coat of arms, and it has the exact information on it I needed at that
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Things like that have happened frequently. And Jeff and I were talking. I don't even think I was in that episode, but I ended up like joining their StreamYard after the show, and I was talking with John and Jeff, and we were just kind of shooting the breeze, and we were throwing around some ideas. And I said, "Well, I'm working on something right now, and I can't wait to share it with you." And then when he did we did a teaser for the episode where I appeared on his podcast, and he actually brought up how they were beginning to look at um, the memorial
Right.
site. It seems like they were looking at it, and I said, "I can't wait to do your show now." And he says, "Why?" I said, "You'll see." I said, "You'll see." Again, all of these meaningful coincidences just kind of happened and fell into our laps, and then. As I did that decryption of the map in the 1611, and everything just fell into place. I could have fallen out of my chair when I saw the
Oh yeah.
location. I plugged it into Google Earth, and there it was, the memorial shaft. Um,
Well,
and
I fell out of
it blew
my
my mind.
chair, Jake, when I saw your entrance location. I actually, and I can't, I'm not, I can say enough. Believe me, I'll tell you guys
Right.
enough. There's a
Sure.
few
Sure.
things at this point I'm probably not going to share about that location,
I get it.
because some of what I did was, hands-on walking across the island and everything. So my version of that was from actually from Jake's work. But the interesting, all right. So Jake, when would you say exactly, or could you put a date on when did you put that thumbnail on the map for
Oh
the garden
gosh.
shaft?
I had been working. It came up while I was working on my book, and John Edwards, uh, uh, Jason Mercer, William Russell, and I started to dig into the 1611 King James Bible. And when I looked at that map, I just started laughing. I looked at the signposts everywhere,
Right.
you know, of the Rosy Cross and Francis Bacon. And I looked, I said, "Oh, geez, okay, I guess I got to go to work on this thing." And I started decrypting it. And next thing I knew, I was able to parse out coordinates and on a map. And at first, nothing was making sense. I said, and I, did the face palm, and I said,
Hmm.
"Oh, it's they used the Paris meridian," and I did the math and plotted it, and boom, there it was on the memorial site. That would have been, I want to say spring of last year.
Okay.
And so I well, no, it was wintertime because I was sitting on it, and then I presented it on Jeff's podcast after that because
Brilliant. Yeah.
it was going to come out in my Oak Island book. Yeah.
Okay. So when season 10 came up, and I would think it was the first episode, but they're finding this tunnel, and it's around 100 feet down, 100 to maybe 108, somewhere in that ballpark. Which, by the way, again, 106, according to Petter Amundsen. I'm keeping that in the back of my mind too,
Hmm. Yeah.
because that's Father RC, right? For I believe his age.
Yeah, it was his age. But the numbers they keep throwing around, it's usually 100, 108, and 111. All of those
Right.
are Francis Bacon signatures. The numbers that keep coming up
Right.
are all Bacon signatures. And I'm like, are they trying to tell me something? What
Right.
do I miss? Wishful thinking on my part, for sure. But it's a really ridiculous set of coincidences when all of the numbers are Baconian ciphers. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I obviously spent a lot of time with the number 100 too. I'll go over
Mhm.
that in a minute. Well, I mean, I believe the original money pit was probably 100 feet. down,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
said 90 feet stone and then it said 10 feet below. Or I've also heard 30 feet below in some translations. But either way, I mean, even if it's 30 feet, yeah, I'm just put this out there. Even if it's 30 feet below, I'm still okay with that because that makes what 120, which is
120.
12,
Right.
and 12 is key to everything. Nolan's Cross, all this stuff. All
Sure.
right, so I'm looking at the map here, and I'm like, why are you guys? This is perfect example, man. When I come in, and I'm like, oh, I think this is ridiculous, and I'm like, Dave, just chill out because you want to see what they're gonna say before you come up with your feeling on it. So I'm like, why are they way to the east? They're way east of the head and shaft. They're way east of the chapel shaft. I'm like, what are you
Right.
guys doing out there? Like, I'm just like shaking my head in front of my phone while they're watching the show. I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's no reason to be out there, really. Everyone else was searching, between those other two shafts and everything. Of course, C1 is
Right.
over by Head and Chapel and all this. So what are you doing way to the east? And then I start seeing the number again. Okay, the tunnel's at around 100 feet or 108 or 106 or something around there, 103. And I'm like, wait a minute. They also found a bunch of tunnels at around the 100-foot level all around C1, and we also know that that's generally what the bottom of the money pit was described to be. Because when the first discovery happened, I believe they were at 93 feet, and then they probed down further with that bar and they hit something. But
Right.
what they hit was probably the top of a chest. So I'm figuring the bottom of the chest was probably sitting at the flat on the 100-foot level right there, and they hit the
Okay.
top of it when they probed down. So it's the amount that it takes, the bottom of that chest, takes to get to the top of it, all that stuff. So I'm assuming maybe 100, but now I'm also saying maybe 106. There's all kinds of stuff in the back of my head right now, and that's one of
Sure.
those things you just have to work with it as it appears. The information appears. Now, when it does appear, I am going to know what to do with it eventually. If it's not immediate, I will know where to place it eventually. Um,
Okay.
so in any case, oh, good, Jake.
Okay, so I had to remove, because you had asked me at some point, we're gonna take a look at Google Earth and look at the island,
Okay,
and I realized that I had, some information on there that I that I
okay,
is not mine, and I couldn't share
okay,
it. It came to me from the island, so I removed that. Um,
okay.
so do you want me to go ahead and share that?
Yeah, you can bring that up, Jake. I think
Okay,
now's a good time. And
okay,
as you bring that up, I'm just going to describe what I was noticing in the first episode. So
okay.
we're way to the east of the head and shaft and chapel shaft, and I'm looking at it, and again, I'm saying, why on earth you guys over here? Everything's telling you to go, more towards head and chapel and C1 and all this stuff. And then they started to find a roughly 100-foot tunnel system. They extended it, and then when Steve Guptill actually extended projected the tunnel, it essentially is leading exactly to Jake's point. It's not even leading to the garden shaft. It's leading literally to the corner of the garden shaft. You guys, if you notice that, it's not right to it. It's right to the left, top left there. That's according to Steve's projection. So again, we're working with science and science-based hypotheses about what that might be.
Sure.
So now I saw, this is the key about this. I saw that episode first. Then I decided, because I'm a busy person. I'm trying to do all my podcasts and I run my own business and all this stuff. So basically, I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to have time to start participating in Jeff's podcast again, because I really enjoy being there with everyone, exchanging ideas and everything.
Well,
So
it's such a great group, and
oh
and
yeah,
Jeff is
absolutely.
just a master at, you know, uh, being able to ask just all the right questions and, manage, all of the things, and of course, when, John is being sidekick and he kind of takes care of the chat for him and stuff. So is everyone seeing, what I have pulled up is Google Earth, and, we have my location for the offset vault, and here is the, women's memorial. Is everyone seeing that?
I can
And
see it. I can see it, Jake.
okay. So then, as you said, to the north, right here was my entrance point.
Hmm.
And, you don't have to speak to that right now, but,
Well, I'm gonna I'm gonna
the
give.
fact that you were surprised by that, made me pretty happy, so
I'll give people enough. Believe me, you guys are gonna
okay.
be really excited, even just what I have for tonight. But basically, okay, so I saw this episode first. This is the thing. Again, this is the thing to remember about this. And then after this was, I think it was a recap for like episode 2 or 3 when I kicked in with Jeff's show for recap
Mhm.
for the shows this season. I wasn't there in the first one because I didn't have time that week. But I found the video that Jake did with Jeff below on the list there below the live video, Jeff's live video, and I was like, oh, okay, this let me check this out. I haven't seen this 1611 Bible topic yet, and I'm very very familiar with the Bible. I've read it, I think a total of 2 full times plus maybe another half of time from the beginning, starting with Genesis all the way to the end in Revelation. And so I'm always interested in people talking about the Bible and things related to that because I spent so much time with it. So anyway, I clicked on Jake's video, and at the point of the show where the thumbtack, excuse me, went onto the map, it was the same place as essentially the garden shaft. And not again, not only
Okay.
that, but that the tunnel as it was projected was going directly to Jeff's point, directly to Jake's point, excuse me, directly
Right.
to Jake's point. So that's to me, that's not a coincidence at all. And on top of that, I'll tell you the other thing that did it for me was looking actually at the depth of what they're saying, what we know to this point, the depth of the garden shaft, which is it's actually 77 and a half is what they said.
Rex Bacon.
So,
Just
oh, is
throwing
it
it out.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the other thing that I was thinking too, Jake, is that if it happened to be 77.7, basically it's 777, which is also highly meaningful. And, what happens a lot of times is people will round down or round up to the nearest like half, or
Yes.
something like that. They're not going to say why would they say 77.75? I mean, just say 77 and a half,
Right.
So either, and that's a great point, Jake. But either way, to me, that's not a random number. So what I'm thinking now, I'm like, wait a minute, maybe this is the money pit because a searcher shaft to me wouldn't have a significant numerology necessarily. They're just putting it down to try to get at something.
Correct.
So between the projected tunnel going to exactly to Jake's point, the depth of the depth that they're saying that the garden shaft is, and Jake's actual point that he put on the map, that's when I actually contacted Jake and I said,
Yeah.
I really want to share some information with you because
Yeah.
this is getting too, it's not coincidental. It's everything's lining up.
And again, I one of the things that I said on Jeff's podcast was, yes, I had sent my information and I said, here you go. I've had multiple conversations with people. I said, look, I don't care about being on TV. If you want me to, I will. But at the end of the day, this is where it is. This is what I think. But the caveat I gave Jeff was, I said, look, I said, at the end of the day, they're going to look at hard science. They're going to look, they had the data from the muon technology at that point.
You're
Okay.
right.
And so I think that's what we're going to see this season is that the muon technology is going to confirm these locations of being cavities and significant points. I think that we're going to find a vault in this area where I say it is, whether it's a natural cavern. The ciphertext of Francis Bacon stated that he found a natural cavern and then he built a room a room after it. And because he said anti room, and I thought it was an anteroom that comes before it. But a friend
Oh,
of mine
wow. Okay.
a friend of mine who's much better at Latin than I am said, well, I think it means that he built the room after he found the cave. I said,
What text was
that
that in,
makes even
Jake?
more sense. That was the ciphertext that I decrypted from the plaque. Okay, that was one of the core messages. It gave me the information about his cone stone Heracles and go to the duplicate knee. Okay, which is how I arrived at the knee of Hercules location on the western
Okay.
side of the island, west of the swamp. Because he said, due west of my pond was what he called it. And after 400 years of accretion, a pond would become a swamp. And so
Okay.
everything fit, everything made sense. But now, when I went into the 1611, this gave this new location of the original money pit location. And so, even though this is not my Hercules knee, it was so compelling that I thought, oh wow, I really got to send this off and let everyone know that the 1611 Jerusalem map is a treasure map that leads to Oak Island,
Oh,
100%.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no question, man. Now,
Yeah.
what exactly is a duplicate knee, Jake? What does that mean?
Great question. He used the word dupli, which is Latin for duplicate. But what it is, we're again talking about astro archaeology, in the sense that Nolan's cross, not only is it a uh, an asterism of the keystone at the heart of Hercules, when you overlay Hercules in a reverse pattern, because you have to realize that the ancients, what they would have been using here, gang, is a I think I have the image here.
It basically gets flipped down from the
It
sky.
gets flipped
Right.
because what they would be doing, and here you can see these were the original locations according to Paul Runklowski, and they match up with the asterism of the um, keystone asterism at the
Hmm.
heart of Hercules. And so the duplicate knee would have been if you overlay Hercules, and again, the ancients would have used an astrolabe. So they would be viewing the constellations as if they were in heaven looking down upon the constellations. And so that's how they would view them if they were using this sort of communication. And so the duplicate knee would have been right there. This one is offshore, but remember, Hercules was known as the kneeling one. He was the demigod who had to humble himself and kneel to a mortal king. And this is what Francis Bacon had to do with his younger brother, younger half brother, James I. He had to, bend the knee to him. And so what you have here is the knee of Hercules location. So the duplicate knee would have been if you overlay the constellation on the island, the duplicate knee would provide the location of his vault. And so that was the premise that I went with as after I read that decryption.
The other interesting thing that's happening there too, Jake, is that I believe there's another constellation that appears pretty much directly in the center of the South Shore Bay right there, just south
Hmm.
of the swamp. It's
Yeah,
really weird because it like fits in that curve, and I start thinking about the ice holes and all this stuff. I actually
Corona Borealis.
right.
Yeah.
And actually, what I think is that the entire sky should be laid out over Mahone Bay. That's where I'm at right now with this. After what I saw that you did, and I'm thinking ahead and stuff.
Well,
Um,
a part of my second presentation was the idea that the constellation of Corona Borealis has as its brightest star is Gemma, which is called the jewel of the crown.
okay.
And so this led me to look for possible shipwreck there with the crown jewels of
Oh wow,
which would have been uh, the mirror of England. It would have been there are a couple of others that came up as being possibilities. So
brilliant.
yeah,
Okay, brilliant.
yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I just want to make sure we have time for everything here. So if we can go maybe the 1611 map, that would be great,
All right,
Jake.
let me pull that up.
And this is buckle up, everyone. This is when it's going to get really exciting. And Jake, I mean, as if it's not enough what Jake has already presented. It is enough, but I'm coming in support of
It's
directly
not enough.
support of.
Here we go. Let's
Well,
have so
right.
here's the map that I used. The upper left portion of the map of Jerusalem. Other researchers have recently reached out to me to show me some really interesting takes on this map as well, which we'll be having them on future episodes that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. But um, is this sufficient here, Dave? This portion?
Uh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We can zoom into let's zoom into the top, very top left where the cross is first. I
Yeah.
think. No, actually, let's zoom into the hangman first. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go
okay.
down. Okay, so I don't know if it was ever explicitly stated, but I'm assuming people are getting this. But for me, that is actually the block and tackle, in addition to a person hanging in a tree. I'm looking at that and I'm saying,
Oh,
oh yeah, totally a block and tackle,
huh.
which was of course, the original idea of how the money pit was designed. So when it's, I wasn't even seeing a person, Jake. I see the person, but I'm like, oh yeah, that's a block and tackle. And then I hadn't heard anyone mention that, but I'm like, wait a minute, no, that's definitely block and tackle.
I never even saw that, Dave, until you just pointed that out. I could
Hmm.
definitely see that as a block and tackle.
Oh, definitely. And you're going to
I hadn't
see
even thought of that.
oh yeah, there's a lot more support for that in a second here too. Um, so and it's got a mound. Of course, you got the tree with the limb extended over that. And the other thing that was interesting too is that when Jake, when you drew the point from, I believe that third cross on top of Calvary at the top of the top left corner there,
Mhm.
it actually does. It comes down right at the base of the tree, which
Yes,
is where the money pit actually would be because there were trees surrounding, the pit.
correct, and gang, what he's talking about is this cross right here. The only way to read it was using the downward support here,
Hmm. And
and
it,
it
and
does line up right there at the base of the tree. Yes,
And it's crazy too because if it was me, I would be thinking, "Oh yeah, it's going to come right down the trunk of that tree," but it doesn't. It comes
I
right
thought so
beside
too,
it.
but no, it was right beside it, just right along there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Totally. So that's again, that's a money pit for me as well. Okay, so we got that part. Let me just do this in the right order here. I already mentioned the block and tackle. Do you guys does anyone recall how far? I know the answer to this, but I don't want to see if people know this. Do you recall how far the block and tackle was supposed to be hanging above the entrance to the money pit?
Gosh, I don't recall that at all.
It's a very obscure detail. What I've seen is anywhere between 16 and 18 feet.
Okay.
For me, it was essentially what that means to me is it's half of 33. That's what I'm looking at when I
Oh,
see
okay.
that. When I see that bracket, that's what I'm keying into is that it's half of 33. So we go up to the top left, again, very top left, and you can see that the third cross is pointing. To me, it was close to 17.75. That's what I was actually seeing. It looked a
Oh, okay.
little bit off from 18, but it's in the
Okay.
right area. It's in the right area where for me that's an ovation to the distance of the block and tackle.
Okay.
And again, the idea being that it's roughly half of 33. You're right in that zone. And I'll show you guys something else
Sure.
incredibly remarkable in a minute here too. Just keep these numbers kind of floating in the back of your head because they're gonna really all come in as we go through this. So anyway, that's what that number means for me, block and tackle. And of course, we know it's a Freemason symbol as well. These ideas I believe
Sure.
got passed over thousands of years. They got passed through many different groups of people. So it's a fairly common motif.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
okay, so we got block and tackle. Let's see here. Um, Even if it is pointing to 18, 18 is half of 36. I'm good with that too because 36 is each arm of Nolan's cross. And 36 is, and being an astrologer, that's 360 degrees in the circle.
Sure.
So that's the thing, Jake, 'cause I see these numbers and I'm like, well, it could be anywhere in this range. I'm good with it, because
Right.
it's in the sweet spot where it's going to work somehow. It's going to fit in.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So we got all that stuff. Let's see. Let's go to the top, very top left again. You've got the right arm of the third cross. Now, it's been a little bit hard for me to do this because, or the right or the left, whichever way you're looking at it. The one yeah, that one right there.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if this is in fact true. You guys could tell me, but it looked like it was pointing pretty close to where it says Watergate, way over on the left there.
Oh,
I don't know if that's in
it
fact true.
it doesn't align perfectly, but it kind of bisects it.
Okay.
What
And the
he's talking
thing
about
that
here, everyone is in the legend, letter H is called the water gate.
right. Now, when I think about entrances to get underground, they are definitely gates. It's one of the ways to describe that. And then we all know about the flood tunnels. So you're talking about a water gate.
Sure.
This is a water entrance or a water filled entrance or something of that nature. There's all kinds of ways to look at that. But
Yeah.
I looked at it, I'm like, that's awfully close to hitting it straight on. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And the reason I looked at that too, Jake, is I remember in your presentation you said, you look up in terms of where the top of that third cross goes to, and you didn't see, the coordinate you're looking for. And then, over to the right side, it's not pointing at a coordinate, it's pointing somewhere different. And
It's
so
in the
you,
middle of
you
space. Yeah. Yeah.
right. But you of course had honed in on the important parts to get us those points, which
Right.
is the most important part of all. But there's all the supporting stuff behind it that kind of comes in later.
Correct,
Okay, so
which I left out of the presentation because, uh, the important part is that everyone wants to know, where is it,
right,
right? And
exactly.
an interesting aside here, the letter H, is used to represent, just like the letter G represents Francis Bacon, the name Bacon, the letter H actually, represents his close friend and, close operative, Walter Raleigh, and Queen Elizabeth called him Water because he had an accent that she liked to poke fun at. So the way he said his name, Walter, it sounded like water, and so she referred
Wow,
to him
okay.
as Water. And the letter H also represents him, in the same way that G represents Bacon. So I think that's also a significant point, because he was definitely in operation in Oak Island as well.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, and there's something else about Raleigh too. I think I mentioned it to you, Jake, and I'll
Hmm.
get to that in a second. I didn't know this, but I asked Jake. I'm like, Jake, what does this number mean to you? And then you knew immediately in terms of cipher, because it didn't
Yeah,
mean anything to me, guys, because I don't work with that particular number. But Jake was
yeah,
able to up on it immediately, and that's why I believe we need the teamwork, because I don't
yeah,
know certain things, and you guys don't know certain things, so we can
exactly,
come up with it
exactly.
together. Okay, so let's go down to the hangman again, which again is it's very clearly the block and tackle to me. There's absolutely no question. Um, okay, and what we have is, and by the way, let me say this too. If you're trying to hide it, in 1795, the original discovery featured the block and tackle with the depression, the three trees and the triangle and all this stuff. And you could see it was disturbed around it. It was cut like you made an area to be able to move freely in that area and stuff like that. And there are also supposedly some other symbols on the trees. So for me, if you're trying to hide something, you don't keep that stuff hanging out there. You don't keep it in the tree. You want to make sure you fill the hole, take the block and tackle down, like try to hide all the evidence. So for me, it's always been like a beacon, essentially. It's like, hey guys, look, there's something weird here. Let's pay attention to this and see what it means. It was not, and they weren't worried about it, Jake, because you can't. I don't think you can get the treasure by going through the money pit, which we already know that because people have
Great,
tried that.
right,
So they're not worried about showing the location. They will actually want it to be a symbol so that you know where to jump off from, after that. Okay, so that's an interesting point because I always wondered. I'm like, why would you keep all of the evidence out there if you're trying to obscure it? And it wasn't meant to
exactly.
be. It was meant to be a beacon to say, hey, here, pay attention here.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going up to okay, so the hangman there. You can actually see. You can zoom in again a little bit, Jake, if you want to. The bottom of that hill or mound there, it says 50, just beneath. Yeah, there you go. You see 50, that
Hmm.
mark. Now, one of the first things that happened when you were using the third coordinates is I was thinking, I'm like, um, I actually thought you were going to use a different system of measurement. So this is again why this is brilliant because you were
Yeah.
using it as coordinates. Well, I was using it as feet.
Right.
So it's multi-layered, and I'm about to prove it right now. So basically, you see that 50 right there.
Right.
Just keep that number in mind again. It's at the base of the money pit there. All right, let's go. Let's scroll up to the top, very top left again, Jake, and you're gonna see that of course we already know this. The third cross points to 50 also.
Right.
So it's the same number. So that's interesting. They're for a relative straight up and down line. They're pointing to the same number. Okay, what's going on with that? Well, I'm looking at that, and because I've spent an enormous, most of us have here,
Hmm.
enormous amount of time with Google Earth and with working with data and drawing maps and all this stuff. And again, I've been on the island, so I've walked around a lot. I kind of know generally where things are located. In an in-person perspective, which is obviously superior than just being in front of your computer screen.
Right.
So one of the things I knew, and again, this was from a minimum of 5 years ago. One of the things I knew about the island, specifically the eastern drumlin, is that the elevation is 49 feet.
Hmm.
You can see this. You go to Google Earth, guys. You can see it. It's 49 feet. So I actually mentioned to Jake. I said, Jake was 49, and of course, Jake told me that.
Rally in simple cipher.
So that's 49. Now, what I did is I went back to the map though, and I was trying to line up the cross arms, and it does hit 50. I tried to make it hit 49, and it does. It's not doing. It's not doing it. It's not doing it.
Right.
Now, what I want to say about this is that again, Jake has mentioned this a lot, and I talk about it a lot too, is that when you're using Google Earth, it's fairly precise for long distances, but when you're trying to get down to like, an inch square or something like that, it can be off by a fair amount.
Right.
So what I actually would encourage people to do is just put your cursor, if you use Google Earth, put it up on get to where it's the top elevation. It should say 49 feet across the board. I tried to find a spot that would say 50, but what I think, and we've known that there's been farming, there's been people leveling stuff and all kinds of this stuff. So what I visualized in my head, Jake, this is actually what I visualized, is that your point there on the top of the it's actually is on the top of the drumlin. That's half of why I almost fell off my seat, because it's directly on the top elevation of the
Mhm.
eastern drumlin.
Yes. And
Um,
and if those of you who are looking at home, I'm sorry that the numbers are so small, but when you're using Google Earth, the elevation appears down here in the lower
mhm.
right-hand corner, and down here on this part of the island, you see it's only 5 feet, if you can see that tiny number, but the entrance point Dave is talking about is right here, and right there it is exactly 49 feet. Yeah.
Right. So it's the very top
Okay.
of the hill, guys. And before I move ahead here, we know, people who spend a lot of time with spiritual traditions and mysticism, that the tops of mountains, the tops of hills, Jake is showing it right now.
Mhm.
Uh, Calvary is at the top of the hill by all accounts. So that is literally at the top of the hill, which is just north of the money pit.
Right.
Um,
And, one of the
and it's
parts of my
showing you,
presentation, the cutaway of what's
right.
underneath. Yeah.
Exactly, it's indicating what is there. And on top of that, it's showing you the elevation in feet. Now, the thing about this for me is that, again, 49 versus 50. It's close enough in that bracket where I'm willing to work with. It's one of those things, you got to see what you find when you get on the ground. So one of the things I've thought of is that if it's another foot, if Jake's entrance on the top of the hill there, it actually could have been another foot higher. I mean, 1 foot, and if it's a like a 2 foot by 2 foot square or something like that, it's going to be awfully hard to pinpoint that maybe with a Google Earth
Yeah,
application.
and something that just occurred to me, Dave, is that, how would they have calculated the elevation? Then, we know that Bacon was
Yeah.
playing with barometers and things of that nature in terms of barometric pressure, but I'm sure they would have done it by line of sight and then
Oh yeah.
used simple trigonometry, and so
Yeah.
if they were their sight line was a little bit off, being off by 1 foot is negligible. That's nothing.
Totally. And
Yeah.
it's not a big
Hmm.
peninsula. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
No, I was just saying, I mean, that's an interesting thought, something I'd never even thought of in terms of elevation.
And you could totally stand down. I mean, even at the Stone Triangle, which is south of the Money Pit down there,
Right.
and you could get a fairly easy. And this is not my skill set, but there's plenty of people that can do it. I'm sure Steve Guptill does it all the time.
Mm.
But get the angle, and then trigonometry is something I've never been great at. In fact, it was not easy at all for me. Uh, it's not a very far distance between where you're standing and the top of that drumlin, so it's easy to get that measurement proper. And okay, so and if you're standing on the shoreline, that's sea level. So that's what you're using
Correct.
to, base. That's the whole point of elevation. How far above sea level is it, or
Correct.
below sea level? Okay, so that's right. That's right in the ballpark for me. I mean, it's within a foot. I'm good with that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we went out there and there was a little raised patch, Jake. About a foot by a foot, right,
Right,
right
right.
where that
No,
is. Now,
and
now
probably
I
in the
would
shape
say
of a
this.
keystone.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be
Yeah.
in the shape of something probably. We have to remember there's a lot of organic material that builds up on top of the soil.
Sure.
You have to get down to the hard pack in order to actually find that. So that's something I didn't have time to do, because you need to devote like weeks and months to that to
Yes.
actually clean it off, make sure you're not hitting anything or destroying any clues.
Right.
Okay, so we got that part. So I said again, the 50, of course, at the base of the money pit is showing you 50 again. So it's saying pay attention to that, close to that. You see the three crosses, which is obviously symbolizing Calvary, or Golgotha. It's a
Mhm.
similar idea, which is
Correct.
the top of the hill. And again, it's not a coincidence that that point that Jake had identified is actually at the top of the hill of the Eastern Drumlin. It's in the same configuration, which is roughly north of the money pit, and it's at the proper elevation if you're looking at feet.
Hmm.
Within a foot margin, which again I'm okay with in terms of being able to move ahead with it. There's a
Again,
lot more.
something that never even occurred to me, Dave. That's really
Oh,
interesting.
no, I was waiting for you, Jake. I was waiting for you when you were pulling up that third point. Be like, okay, so you guys see over here, this can also mean feet. And when you didn't say that, I said, oh my God,
Yeah.
I have to get on this right now because it is totally both.
And there's an element of it that I didn't share that I was talking. I was looking at it not as height but as depth. That's where I thought you were going with it, but this is really
All
interesting.
right.
Yeah,
Well, it's probably both, to be honest. It's
sure,
probably
exactly,
well,
exactly.
I'll get to yeah, I'll just you'll see. I'll continue to develop this.
Okay,
All right, so basically, now we can go down to, and by the way, this was last minute. I was able to pull this piece in about an hour and a half before we got on the show here, Jake.
okay,
Things always come to me up until the last second to help me to be able to present good information to people. I feel very thankful for that. So the thing that we know about the money pit, if you want to zoom into the money pit, Jake, really quick,
sure.
not the garden shaft. Let's zoom into the money pit area.
Oops.
Okay, so the money pit area, we remember from the first season, maybe season one, season two, there was a lot of destruction there. We know obviously what
Right,
Dunfield did and everything. Most of the accounts that I've seen, it's anywhere from I believe about 10 to 13 or 14 feet of soil that's been removed from that area. So we're talking about that whole area used to be up quite a bit higher,
right.
right around that money pit area there, that circular area. So if you go down to where the money pit is traditionally, I think it's about 23, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, 23 feet.
Yeah, right around in
Okay.
this area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is where it's marked on Google Earth, everyone, but that's not necessarily where the team had originally had it located. It was down in this area, if I remember correctly.
Oh, the original money pit, or for what they were saying.
Or what they were saying, yes, if I remember
Okay.
correctly.
Okay. So the part about this that I want to really focus on is that you have. I was prepared to say, okay, so the original money pit is, according to what they always believed, it's sitting at about 23. You got to add the 10 feet that was lost, and that gets you to 33. But wait a minute, this gets better. So that's what I was going to say on the show when I came on today, and I did a last minute measurement. And go over to your to the garden shaft point, Jake. Go over to your money pit point,
Okay.
and tell me what you see for an elevation right there.
And it's right at 34, 33 feet.
Right, exactly.
33, 34. Yeah.
Okay, and so when I had mentioned previously, I said it's oscillating between that 33, 34, 32, and then 15, 16, 17, 18. They're all right in between that zone.
Yes.
Now now if this is something I don't think we can ever maybe discover again, but all that area that was leveled, the money pit area, I believe that used to be also 33 feet, and I bet you anything that there was some kind of an indication of kind of where to dig, because basically here's the idea: find the 33-foot plateau, and there's going to be some clues there for you. So I think that what's amazing about this to me is that I don't know this would be something if people want to look into it, I would really welcome that. I think everyone would. But I actually don't think the garden shaft elevation was changed. I don't think that was touched. I think Dunfield made a huge hole and it came just short of that. And that's why you see all the other ones down at 23 feet around where they're traditionally saying the money pit is. But I think that was actually preserved. I think that Jake's garden point shaft is the original elevation for that. And I believe that was divinely protected, is what I would say.
Wow. And again, that's entirely possible, Dave. It, it's plausible because you have this group of people, the Fellowship of the Dig, have protected that specific site this whole time.
Hmm.
And we know, Dunfield, where he, really focused on his dig, was farther to the southwest of this by a little bit. So it's entirely possible it was preserved. The whole idea of elevation is something that, again, I didn't think to incorporate, simply because I was, it occurred to me that it would be a neat coincidence or a meaningful coincidence, that kind of a thing. But it didn't occur to me that they would have taken the time to actually use that as a signpost. I've always
Mhm.
believed that if all things being equal, arriving here at this point, there would have been many of the carved rocks that were removed by Fred Nolan and others over the years. Uh, would have pointed us in the direct point where we needed to be, for sure.
Oh, definitely. And I
Yeah,
feel very thankful that there's so many intelligent people we can actually get around it. We don't need everything. We can still figure it out.
we can still figure it out.
Yep. Okay, so we can go back to the 1611 map quickly, Jake, and we'll do a recap on this, then I'll move on for a second. But basically, so again, you at the top of the hill there, it's showing you
Yep,
50 feet. You go down to the hangman, which is the block and tackle of the money pit, and it's pointing at what? We already
50.
know.
Yeah,
Well, yes, but the
but it's
branch,
pointing
yep,
at 33. Yeah.
right. So it's showing you that the money pit's at their 33-foot elevation on the
Oh, wow.
island, and at the top, the entrance is at the 50-foot, and that's actually what we see. And the difference between those two is that 15, 16, 17, 18 right in there zone, which
Right.
the top of the third cross is pointing at that number, the 17 and three quarters or 18.
Yeah, right here. Yeah.
It's telling you the distance between the top and between the money pit, which is also the distance of the block and tackle above the money pit,
Wow.
which is also supposed to be half of 33, as far as I'm concerned, what I believe about it.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's really exciting. I mean,
That
that's
that's
just,
that's really interesting. That's an interesting take that I hadn't expected, Dave. This is really cool.
yeah, and it's showing you it's direct
Yeah.
for me. It's direct evidence.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about the Essene Gate, because that 33 line that Jake drew goes through the phrase Essene Gate. It also goes
Mhm.
through the center of the Ark of the Covenant, essentially just to the right of that, which I found highly, maybe not center, but it's close. I find highly relevant. And then if you go to the left a little bit, Jake, I just want to see where it hits the temple the Jerusalem map part of it. Yeah, it goes right through the center of that temple too, doesn't it? Pretty damn
Pretty
close.
close. Pretty close.
Okay, so the thing with that is that I've always believed that the money pit is a model of the Enochian vaults. It's a fairly common theory that was out there, because
Sure.
it's like a direct replica. It's you got the 9 levels, the stone of God, 90-foot stone at the 90-foot level, and we
Right.
know that was beneath the temple. So what I think is showing you is that when you draw that line across the map there, it's showing you that the money pit is a model of the temple. It goes through the temple, and it's showing you what's beneath it, which I suppose is the Ark of the Covenant, which was beneath the Temple of Solomon in the vaults. And the Essene Gate is like, to me, it's like the gate of the adept. It's like where the mystic student enters. So if you put that beacon out there, you see that, oh, pay attention to this point, guys. This is, you're going to see the references to the numbers. Even the diameter of the money pit, 12 or 13 feet in diameter, all this stuff. The
Yeah.
adept starts there, and he notices that, and then he moves on. And then
Correct.
possibly you go through the top entrance there, and that's actually your water gate, which is the real entrance. And I don't really know exactly what that means yet until we get in there.
Right.
But I will say this. This is very interesting. I don't know if people remember, but actually, the first account of what happened when the money pit flooded, you guys remember, it wasn't really fast. They kind of left. They saw it trickling in. They came back, I think, on Sunday morning after church or something, and they saw, oh wow, now it's the water levels come up really high. Well, the water level was 33 feet from the surface of the ground. We need to remember that. This is very important. So, and with the first time I saw that, I said, no, this is not a natural like cavity or shaft. That was done on purpose, because that's a very significant number. So,
Yes, indeed.
what I say, yeah. So what I say about that, and the reason to do that too, Jake, is that they knew sea level. Sea level's zero. So to make the money pit flood to within 33 feet, all you have to do is put the money pit at a 33-foot elevation, and then all it's doing is flooding to sea level, and then you got 33 feet between the entrance and the sea level.
Gotcha.
So that's the other part where 33 comes in with the original model, is that it's showing you that, yeah, it was 33 feet from the top. The water line was 33 feet below the top of the money pit.
Wow.
And the money
Okay.
pit's at 33 feet of elevation. You got the top entrance at 4950 that we can see with the map there. It's all perfect. I mean, maybe if someone's going to accuse me of something, maybe say, yeah, I moved slightly to the side, but I don't think it's that far off. I think it's pretty much
Yeah.
showing exactly what it is. Okay,
Okay.
we got the scene gate here. Okay, no cannon vault. Let me just see something. Yeah, the other thing too is that if you want to go back to Google Earth really quickly, Jake,
Sure.
if you draw a line through your money pit point, which is at the side of the garden shaft there, and you draw it directly east, it goes right through the center of the cave-in pit. I mean, it's directly east.
Yeah, and as a tool, let me show people how this works. And the cave-in pit, by the way, everyone, when you place these push pins, the little pointy part is not where the coordinates are. It's actually at the center of the push pin. And if we draw a line here, and as you can see here, you're able to identify the degrees and how far it goes. But if we go basically 90 degrees due east, there's the cave-in pit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um, and
more
and the
evidence.
cave-in pit was also one of the stars that appeared. It was actually Hercules's shoulder. Is the exact, or I believe his shoulder or elbow was the cave-in pit. It lined up perfectly.
Brilliant. Yep.
Yep.
So that's more evidence. As if we need more. I don't think we need more at this point, but I'll give you a couple more.
Okay.
And then if you go directly south of your money pit point, it's essentially exactly 360 degrees to the stone triangle area, which is the other water feature, the flooded shaft right there. So
Yep.
it's right around there. It comes out to 360
Yeah, and
directly.
again, when we do this, everyone, you have to remember that we're the the triangle is no longer there, the stone triangle. So we're guesstimating exactly what. And again, these features are basically the signposts of how to map out the island.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess
All right.
that's it for the money pit right now. Again, the big revelation is that it's also displaying the feet, and it's showing you, okay, top of the hill, which is the top of Calvary, it's at 50 feet, and the money pit's being at 33 feet, which it
Right.
actually is when you measure it, that's absolutely exceptional.
Wow.
Okay, all right, Jake. So the next thing we should do, let's go to how much time do we have, Jake? I mean, I'm getting
Well,
close.
usually this we run about an hour. We're at 2 right now, but if you
Okay.
have something, one more thing you really want to go ahead and share with us, I'm all
Yep.
ears.
All right. Do we have 15 or 20, or do we have less than that?
I can let's go 15, Dave.
Okay. All right, let's do it. So
100%.
I'm gonna get this in. So if we go to
Okay.
Google Earth,
Okay.
let's draw the line from Jake's Money Pit Point to the Tau of Hercules, which is the knee point,
Mm-hmm.
and
So,
let's see what we got for a distance on that.
okay. So I just dropped this place marker. So we'll just guesstimate. I'm going to
Okay.
zoom out a little bit. So we'll go here. And
And by
my,
the way, directly east to west, right, Jake?
mhm.
This line.
And again, I'm guesstimating here. Hold on. Let's go feet. Did you want feet, Dave? Or you
Yeah,
want
feet
yard?
for sure.
Okay. So, um, my knee of Hercules point is right around in here.
What's it showing for a rough distance?
Rough distance is 1,547 feet.
Okay, so for
Could
me,
be 1,550, whatever.
yeah, or exactly, or it could be 1561.
Which would be his birth date.
Right. Now, the reason I bring that up is because me and Jake all talked about. You might have done on your show too. I believe you said something about how the knee point is equivalent to his to January 22nd or something. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, actually, yeah, on his birth date, January 22nd in 1561, is when we have this alignment of Hercules on the horizon that
Oh
matches.
my goodness, man. Oh
Okay.
man, that's even
Um,
better.
and it's at midnight. Um, Another interesting correlation is one that I'll be mentioning on a future show, but it has to do with the constellation of Gemini on the date that appears on the plaque of
Oh, okay.
Shakespeare's funerary monument, which was April 23rd,
Okay, great.
1616. So,
Okay,
but
so
that's
what I would
interesting.
say,
That's very, very close to my knee of Hercules, and I never mentioned it at 1561. Holy crap, Dave!
yeah, I believe
That's
it is,
pretty
and
cool.
yeah, of course, and that's why that was the last thing that came into place. Who said, yeah, I have to start talking about Bacon
Yeah,
because it's everything is pointing towards Francis Bacon. Now, I actually believe it's a long lineage of many groups of people, but I think maybe the most recent deposit was Bacon. I think that would what I would say be what I would say at this point. And
yeah, yeah.
there's more going on too. There's more
Oh,
things
there are.
that I'm not gonna, right.
Yeah, and I wish I had permission to, like, kind of, delve into some of the other areas I've been getting into lately. But um, let's just say that these two locations on the island are a drop in the bucket in terms of what they were accomplishing. The traditions I think that they were following, in my opinion, were ancient seafaring traditions, um, which predate Columbus. So, in that sense, if people want to make a connection to um, the Knights Templar and, coming to America, possibly that's entirely, in the realm of possibilities. But just like you just said, Dave, I mean, what I do is I look at what's in front of me. What do I have evidence for? And at this point, what I have, obviously, stacks and stacks of evidence for is Bacon and Raleigh in particular, as they were the fraternity of the Rosy Cross.
Definitely.
Yeah, good stuff.
Um, oh yeah, Jake, do you have the picture I sent you?
Yes, I do. Let's wrap up with that one if
Okay.
we could, because I think it's just really
Yeah.
it when you sent that to me, I said, okay, that's going to be really cool, and it's going to
Oh
show
yeah.
what. Let me go ahead and share the screen one
Jake, while you
last.
bring that up, I just want to mention a couple things.
Go for it.
In one of the classification systems, the Tau Hercules is actually assigned the number 22. The person who did that, I think we should research him because he had a lot to do with I think some of the societies back then. He was the guy responsible. I'll have to find it. I tried to find the link, but that
That
point
would
is
be great
actually
if you could find that for me, because the number 22 in and of itself is significant.
oh definitely definitely
It's the value that is associated with the name Stuart, with the French spelling, Bacon's true last name, if his mother was Mary, Queen of Scots.
oh wonderful okay yeah
Yeah.
great. All right, so I want to pull this in to kind of wrap this up for you guys. This, of course, I'm an astrologer. So astrology is also in the human body. It's not well known. A lot of people don't realize that the body is structured with the 12 signs, kind of drawn out with Aries at the head, and of course you got Pisces, the two fish or the 2 feet. Well, what happens when you get to January 22nd is actually right between the signs of Capricorn and the signs of Aquarius. And where that is on the body is the knee. It's on the knee of the human body. That is the
Oh, there's
January 20.
Aquarius and there's Capricorn and there's the knee. Holy cow.
And just so you guys know, the word cap, kneecap, where do you think that comes from? From our friend Capricorn. That's why it's called the cap. So it's
Hear
showing
that,
you
John?
that
You can't make this stuff up.
no, in January, right? It's called a cusp date or
Mhm.
cusp sign, January 22nd, right in there. right
Yeah.
between the kneecap and the shin, Aquarius, right there.
Right.
So that's where it is on the body, and that's where it is on the island. And we have January 22nd, 1561. You have it showing you his birthday. I actually think that I would say his birth records are probably buried at that spot. I don't know what you believe in terms of which one is which, Jake, but I would say
Yeah.
that, and I would say the crypt is over on the Money Pit side. So
I'm
I
I'm
got
not
that.
going to disagree with
Yep,
you.
yep. And the last is like two more things here. I found out that the Tau Hercules Tau point right there with you may know this, Jake, but it's supposedly going to be the North Star again. It's within 1 degree of the North Pole area there of
Yep.
influence where the pole star oscillates. So I find that it said 7400 BC was the North Star, and it's going to be that again 18,000 something. But that's important too because again that's highly symbolic. Why this point? Because it's the North Star point of the sky to navigate by. I got the
Amazing.
22nd there, 1561 birth records. Oh yeah, and by the way, Jake, the elevation at the Tau point. Let's do that, and I won't say anything else.
Okay.
Let's take an elevation of the Tau point. Let's see what we
Okay.
get.
I already know.
Okay.
So if everyone's looking at that, you're talking about the knee
it's
of
not. It's not.
Hercules point?
Yeah, we got to pull it up, Jake, to the Google Earth.
Okay. I thought I just shared it. Nope, I didn't. Clicked out of it.
Yeah. Well, while Jake's pulling that up, the other thing to remember too is that Nolan's Cross has 60-degree bearing points at Jerusalem, and the bottom cone to the left cone of the arm actually is a 33-degree angle as
It
well.
is.
So all this stuff is right in there.
So if we're looking right at this area, what are you saying, Dave?
Well, I'm seeing 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And
12
again,
feet.
it's this thing where and it might have been put at right between them because with astrology, what I teach 12 and 12 and 13 it's kind of a group. They go together. 12 is 12 is like the last step, and then 13 is the completion event
The
or
completion.
completions.
Yeah.
And
And
at the
in that
same
esoteric symbology, 13 is the number of the ascended master. 12 is the completed man, but
right.
13 is the God man. Yeah.
And then we also know with Freemasonry, you got 32 and 33, which are both distinctive, but they're grouped together.
Correct.
So you see these numbers oscillating between, oh, I'm not sure if it's 12 or 13 or 32 or 33. Well, it might be both, It might have been put on the line right between that elevation. I would not be surprised at all. And that's something, of course, you have to get out there to actually take the on the ground measurements.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Again, Dave, I mean, you're bringing up, something that when it comes down to it, that, I had dismissed and time and time again, I find that when I do that, someone like you comes along and, kind of, shakes me and says, "Hey, pay attention to this." And sure enough, I'm like, yeah, I dismissed this early on as being a coincidence and maybe I shouldn't have. So thank you for
Right.
that.
Oh, you're
Um,
welcome. And of course, it's the
and
same way with me and Bacon.
yeah,
He was on my back burner. I wasn't looking at him for 5 years, so you
yeah,
you were able to do that for me.
awesome, man. Thanks. Well, so a couple of comments here right at the end. John Edwards is saying it's getting late for teachers. Yeah, John, same here, my friend.
Hmm.
5:30 comes early tomorrow. Uh, AO, my friend, Jake should have wrapped the show up here. Invited Dave back from. He says he's saying it's. He says leave a cliffhanger moment for the ending. Well, we're gonna have him back again here, AO for sure because I have a feeling that you and I can probably talk about this stuff all night long, which is what AO is talking about. And Daniel, once again, there are multiple locations of interest, in my opinion. Mine too. And frankly, I'll just say this much: they're not all on Oak Island. Um, and so, but as far as the island is concerned, like I said, I know that I've been able to put two X's in specific places, um, and there could even be more. I mean, other people have put X's other places, so I agree. What do you think, Dave?
Oh, absolutely. And the cliffhanger, if you guys want a cliffhanger, I'll leave it with the cliffhanger for sure.
Here we go.
Always happy to do that. But you know that what Bacon said about supposedly Oak Island, maybe it wasn't said specifically, but it was intended to be the new Atlantis,
Hmm.
and that's the book. And the other thing about that, this was way back, probably in season one, but Mahone Bay. If you guys have spent some time looking at the islands, they're all pretty weird looking. Okay, I'm just gonna put that out there. They don't look like the standard like craggy cliff island in the ocean. It's like no, you see a lot of smooth straight lines, and some look like animals and stuff like this. And there's supposed to be about 360 of them, which again is that number.
Yeah.
It's like wait a minute, this is a broad system, which is why after I saw Hercules on the map, the first thing that I
Yeah.
would start with, I would put the whole sky over Mahone Bay. That's what I would do. And go ahead
100%.
and go ahead and dig the treasures. You'll see where they're at.
100%. All right, gang, we're gonna wrap things up. Dave, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This was enlightening. It was a lot of fun. Uh, and every time we chatted, over the last couple of weeks, you had some eye-opening information, and I always appreciate that. I always want to learn from others, and I'm glad that you've benefited from my information as well. And we're going to continue to share information in the future, my friend. Um, so, uh, where can people find you? Where can people find more of your information? And we'll sign things off here.
Great. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Jake. It was just a spectacular time. I hope you guys
Good.
enjoyed it.
Very
I hope people are going to have a lot to think about now, a lot of material. Um, yeah, if you want to find me, of course, I'm an astrologer. I do a full tropical astrology, also called Western astrology, which includes birth charts, relationship matching, business applications, picking days of the year you're more likely to have success with things. And then I also do spiritual guidance and a lot with what I call pre-Ayurvedic medicine, which is the principles of how physics works in your body and how liquid dynamics works in your body, fasting, moving your fluids, moving the electricity, stuff like that. So any of those things, if I can provide a service for you guys, please let me know. If you just want to drop me a note, also let me know for sure. Best places would be Facebook, Dave Petrella. You guys can see my name at the bottom of the screen here, how to spell that. Instagram is Dave Petrella 12. No, we for the 12 signs. That's why, if you guys are wondering. And then I have my own YouTube channel. Again, it's under Dave Petrella. It's very easy to find, and I update that frequently. So feel free to subscribe, guys, and I'd love to have you.
great, Dave. Thanks so much. And yeah, definitely everyone subscribe to Dave's channel. Dave, I'm going to pop you out. We're going to wrap things up, and I'll meet up with you right here on the other side in just a minute. So thanks so much, my friend. All right, gang. Once again, interesting information. Totally different take or direction from what I do. But, again, I just love bringing in people who have fresh perspectives, and interesting things to say. And again, real experience, his own boots on the ground of Oak Island. And he brought that, perspective to us. And, I can't appreciate it enough. So if you get a chance, make sure you head on over to Dave's site, YouTube channel. Check him out on Facebook, follow him there, and listen. 2 weeks from now is going to be Christmas, so I wish you all a very happy holiday. Obviously, I will not be doing a podcast on that holiday. We'll spend some time with our family and our friends, and just think about how we care about each other. So be good to each other, and until next time, we'll be talking to you real soon. Thanks, gang. Have a great week.